It's beginning to look a lot like a chaotic Christmas for commuters, with rail strikes set to hit services across the country. The biggest impact will fall between the 11th and 17th of December, when just 1 in 5 trains will run. More walkouts are planned for the new year. At the same time, bus services will also be disrupted, with strikes planned for the next 3 weeks. The disputes are over pay and working patterns and follow stalled talks between unions and transport bosses, a fight fuelled today by the Transport Secretary, who was clear, despite demands, wages will not rise in line with inflation.
I think inflation matching or inflation busting pay rises are unaffordable, and I think we want to try and give all the workers in the public sector who work very hard decent pay rises, but they can't be inflation-busting pay rises. There simply isn't the money to pay for those,
but at the same time,
given the context. And by the way, we haven't seen those in the private sector either.
This has angered union chiefs who hit back, telling Sky News the money is there, but the political will is not.
The money does exist. That's the reality. It's about choices. It's about where that money goes. And our view as a trade union is that public sector workers took us through the pandemic, and public sector workers now deserve a pay rise, a level of pay that at least meets the cost of living, so that public sector workers are not having to rely on food banks.
But it's not just the transport network that faces disruption. Nurses will also walk out for 2 days in December, the first time they've done so in over 100 years. They say that after over a decade of real terms pay cuts, they deserve a 19% rise. But even Labour couldn't say whether this is affordable in the current financial climate.
Look, the truth is I don't know. The government hasn't opened the books to us. So in the case of nurses, for example, we're not privy to National Health Service negotiations, and it would be absurd for me to try and conduct those negotiations live on air. What I can tell you is that if we were in government, we would be treating the nurses as partners. They haven't been on strike for 106 years, and they've had to resort to strike action because the Health Secretary, Stephen Barclay, wouldn't even meet them over the summer.
After a summer of strikes, many workers will now be spending this festive period on the picket line as well. For the public, more discontent to come this winter. Liz Bates, Sky News, Westminster.